You said that you're a trans woman.
I trans female, yes, sir.
Do you have a
Capital, and he also wrote the
Communist Manifesto. Who was his co-author?
Who was co-author?
Yeah, Engels. Good. I'm glad college is really paying off for you.
If someone came up to me and said, I hate white people, I hate you because you're white, did I just experience racism from that?
No.
But if I said those exact same words and twisted the skin color, it would be racist.
Absolutely, 100%.
I did not go through that course of who can be racist towards each other. Interesting,
right.
but
Probably
I'm
because
good.
you're white. So.
Oh, because I'm white, I didn't go through the racism course.
Probably not.
Yes or no? Can white people experience racism?
No.
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 No?
No. By definition, no.
What's the definition?
I would have to Google it really quickly, but.
Do that for me.
Okay. Let me Google it for you.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Oh, not me on 5%.
How convenient that the battery is only 5%. Now he can't look up the definition to find out that racism doesn't only apply to black people, but applies to all people. He's just avoiding the inevitable.
So you've talked a lot about the mental illness and depressed and anxious population in the trans community, but you don't talk about the happy people in the trans community and how these preventative measures of, let's say, like puberty and the surgeries that go for gender affirmation and how these are life-changing and life-saving. I know many people...
How do you know?
Oh, okay. 1 second, if I can finish my conversation.
Okay.
Many people in my life have had these interventions made, and it's saved their lives. I can list dozens of people in my life. So what do you have to say for...
You can list dozens of people who had surgeries and drugs as children and would be dead today if they hadn't?
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Dozens of people who have had interventions, including gender affirming, let's say therapies, yes, hormones, surgeries, that have made their lives better. I'm not saying it didn't force them to commit suicide, but it made their lives better. What do you have to say for the happy trans community?
I guess I would throw it back at you first, because the burden of proof is on you on this one. And I'll explain why the burden of proof is on you. Because, as I went over in the talk, for thousands of years, human beings existed, and there was no such thing as trying to medically transition people into another gender. And as far as we know, there was no suicide epidemic because of it. And then in the last few years, people like yourself have come along and said, we desperately need to do this or people will be in despair and they might kill themselves. So you are making a claim that contradicts common sense, science, biology, also the entire experience of the whole history of the human race. And so what that means is that the burden of proof is on you to support it. And so I'm going to ask you, you said that people need this stuff so they can live happier lives and potentially it'd be life-saving, you said even. Aside from your anecdotes of your friends who told you so, how do you know that?
Okay, so thinking back to when I was 16 in an anatomy class, when I learned that transgender people tend to have the brain structure that confirms their identity that they identify with. And you can look that up. That's a fact.
I will look that up.
Yeah, it's a fact.
I will look that up and I won't find it.
Yeah.
It's not a fact.
Oh.
It's not a fact.
Should we all pull out Google really quick and look?
So you're saying a trans man has the brain of a woman?
No. I'm saying that a trans man who identifies as a man will tend to have similar brain structure that a cis man would.
And where did you get that from?
Look it up. It's literally, I'm telling you, I learned it from my anatomy class when I was 16. And I looked up the fact before I watched.
This guy is coming with stats and historical facts to back up his argument. His opposition comes with proof in the form of, I know dozens of people, which she can't prove to us. And when he turns it back on her to prove again, she relates to her experience, having learned it in some anatomy class long ago.
I wish I didn't have a time constraint because I have a lot of things I want to get through, but I'm going to read 2 quotes and ask how you justify this as, quote, a hero, and, quote, one of the greatest men in history, as you said through your speech.
Where are your quotes from?
The quotes are from his journal.
From where?
In his journal.
I'm sorry.
His journal.
From the Journal of Christopher Columbus.
Yes.
Okay.
In his journal, he says, quote, let us in the name of the Holy Trinity go on sending all the slaves that can be sold. He also says, quote, the Indians are so naive. I will bring as much gold and slaves as you need. That actually was not in his journal. That was to the court in Madrid.
I assume it wasn't in his journal because he would be writing to himself. Right, so you're saying Christopher Columbus agreed in a letter to his bosses who were funding his voyage that he would fulfill the terms of his voyage? That's what you're saying? This is some shock.
There's two parts to it. The first one was from his journal, where he quite literally said, let us in the name of the Holy Trinity go on sending all the slaves. The second one was to the court in Madrid, appeasing them, saying, yes, let's go get all these slaves from
Well,
this land.
you mentioned in the name of the Holy Trinity, Christopher Columbus baptized many natives. He did it personally. And he obviously was bringing the faith to the New World. You're at a Catholic university. If you believe that the faith is true and good and beautiful, as I do, as all Christians ought to do, then that's a wonderful thing to spread the gospel to people who've never heard it before.
I think you misheard the quote. The last part of the quote
I don't
is
think
the
I
most
misheard the
important.
quote, but you can repeat it if you like.
In the name of the Holy Trinity, what should
Yes.
we do in that name? Go on sending all the slaves that can be sold.
So he sent slaves to the New World. That is true. Or back to Spain. That is true. That was part of the deal. And if you listen to my lecture, I'm not sure. I heard your question, but I'm not sure you heard my lecture. He agreed to the encomienda system as a political concession because he was outfoxed by a local mayor named Roldan. This was the cause of much of his consternation in the New World. It's the reason that Bobadilla was able to take over and usurp control from him in the West Indies. This is a political reality. This is not a beautiful thing. It's a terrible thing. Slavery is an awful thing. None of us disagrees with that. But for us now, as people who have benefited, all people of the whole world who have benefited from the greatest country, the most profitable, the most charitable, the most equitable, the most just, the one that allows you to stand there and ask me that question, for us to spit on that man who made all of it possible because he made some moral concessions in order to take the most ambitious voyage at that time in the history of man is so bizarrely ungrateful. It is so ignorant of historical and political realities as to be naive and sophomoric.
My question was, how can you justify calling him a hero? I agree.
I've just justified it. That's my explanation. I think that you're standing on the shoulders of giants and you think that you're flying, but you're not. We are dwarfs standing on the shoulders of that great man, and we spit down on him in our ingratitude. How pathetic.
He let that teen know how pathetic he was for trying to highlight that Christopher Columbus sold people into slavery when all it was a moral concession so that he could be funded many riches by discovering a new world. That man didn't mince any words with this kid, letting him know the truth about where priorities lie.
What's your most important issue?
The economy, getting the interest rates down, getting it where we can afford to live in America. Right now, it's too expensive.
Okay, now let me maybe ask like a slightly impolite question. But, if you can afford a boat, you're not hurting so bad, right? Because a boat costs a lot of money and it's a lot of upkeep.
Listen, nobody gave me. I earned everything that I've got. I'm retired military, retired power plant, and I am successful and retired and with boats, jet skis, because I did it right. And everybody has that chance. Whether they choose or not, that's up to them.
I would never try to take anything away from you in that way. But what I'm asking is, groceries are probably a smaller part of your budget than, say, someone who's like a little worse off. I think it's interesting that people who are a little bit more comfortable are still so concerned about the economy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Because I want my money to go further. I want inflation to go down. I want interest rates to go back down. I want all that. But that covers everybody in the economy. Not just me, not just the poor, not just the rich. It covers everybody.
Now, something I've heard from some people, tell me if this applies to you, is like they're worried their kids aren't able to afford a house or a car.
No. I trained my kids and taught my kids properly. They have great educations, and they're both successful in their careers.
This reporter is trying to make it seem like this guy should be less concerned with things being too expensive because he has more money than other people. His point is, you don't have to be the poorest person in the country to want groceries to be less expensive. Everyone wants that.
What about looking back over history? You've written the idea that women were oppressed throughout history is an appalling theory. They haven't had a great time, though, have they?
Who has had a great time in history?
But men have had less of a
Really? Have
time.
they? Have they? By what standard? By what standard?
Well, I'm just saying if you're a woman...
How about war?
But it took longer for women to get the vote, and women belong to their husbands, and in this country, one woman dies every week from domestic violence, a man dies like once a month, I believe, from that same cause. Like, aren't there some clearly obvious things that women are victim of as a result of their gender?
There are inequalities in the catastrophes that the genders are subject to. And so look, first of all, there's some things we got to get straight. History's a rough business. Everybody had it rough. In 1895, the typical Westerner lived on less than $1 a day, which is absolute poverty by today's standards, right? And so people were brutally poor for almost the entire course of human history. It was rough. You say, well, did men or women have it worse? It's like, well, you know, that's a complicated question. But one of the things you can say is everybody had it pretty damn bad. And apart from the pure catastrophe of existence that was shared, say, more or less equally between the genders, like most of the time, men and women helped each other. Like women raised their sons, you know, husbands protected their families. I'm not buying this whole, the sexes have been at each other's throats the entire history of mankind. It's like, no, wrong. And then one level deeper than that, I don't like the whole game. The whole game is, let's divide people into groups and contrast their oppression. It's like, fine, play it, see what happens. You're not going to like it. We did that in the 20th century, right? The right-wingers played it in Nazi Germany, and left-wingers played it throughout the communist world. And all that happened was that we stacked up the corpses, millions of them.
This woke reporter wants to try to highlight how women are worse off, like how they are subjected to domestic abuse far more often, but this guy isn't having it. He lets him know that everyone has had it bad throughout history, poverty, war. He shuts down any inequality notions this woke reporter may think that he has.
Now the trouble is, generationally, that starts to slip. So the Cuban immigrants favor conservatives. Even the children of Cuban immigrants favor conservatives. But then when you get to the grandchildren, that becomes a problem where they start to veer toward the left. Obviously, that's not a racial problem. They have the same race as their grandparents. Obviously, that's not an immigration problem. The immigrants are more conservative than their grandkids. What it would appear to me more likely is that it is a problem of education, particularly an educational apparatus that from K to 12 and all the way through college and all the way through your master's and your PhD, if you stick on for that, you are told that America is evil, conservatism is evil, and leftism is wonderful. It's eminently clear to me that race is a minor factor here, and that ideas are the issue. So if we want to win moving forward, I think we need to stop these ridiculous and bigoted ideas that race somehow determines what you think about politics, and move on to a more human understanding and frankly a more reasonable and civilized understanding of politics. You can follow up, sure.
Just last year in the 2018 midterm, whites were the only group to vote predominantly Republican. African Americans voted 90% Democrat, Hispanics 69%, and
I think
Asians
I just said
77.
That, didn't I?
Yes, but what does it matter if they were more Republican in the past than today?
Because it shows that it's not racially determined, which would appear to be your contention when you say demographics are destiny. So if they're not racially determined, then something else is at work here, which is exactly my point, and it would seem to be not your point.
So,
sure.
If I may ask, when then will they begin to vote for Republicans again?
Well, I got to tell you, guys who push an exclusively racial politics aren't really helping the situation very much, in my opinion. And if my thesis is correct, that the perception of one political party embracing black voters and another political party shunning them was a major motivator of the black support for the left, and that would seem to be borne out by historical reality, then what I would recommend is we not speak with racially exclusive language and with political ideologies that really don't seem to bear much with regard to reality and the reality of how we think about politics and the human person.
Everyone always wants to make it about race, but this guy is here to tell the woke to wake up. Immigrants used to be more conservative. It's their kids or their grandkids that aren't. It's less about race, he tells the people. Maybe it has to do with education.
How's that different than a trans person?
Race and gender are two completely separate things. They have nothing to do with each other, and the existence of being transgender does not imply the existence of being transracial.
So you can pretend to say that you have ovaries when you don't, but you can't put makeup on to pretend to be a black person.
What transgender women are claiming to have ovaries?
There's lots of men that pretend to have ovaries. In fact, the CDC guidance says right now that men can chest feed. Do you think men can chest feed?
That's not the sole criterion for being...
So let me ask you a question. What is a woman?
A woman is someone who identifies as one.
Answer the question without saying the word woman. You can't say the word woman. That's called circular reasoning. It's like saying a tree is something that looks like a tree. So I'll ask again, what is a woman?
A woman is a person who lives a lifestyle aligned with feminine characteristics, not necessarily your chromosomes or your genitals.
So someone who just wears a dress. So what you are doing is you are reducing womanhood to a costume.
No. So, are you suggesting that, like, a transgender woman goes about her day pretending to be a woman, but then when she gets home, she starts acting like a man?
No, delusional in every part of life. I understand that, but that doesn't mean they're not delusional. There's a series of mental conditions where you could pretend to be a wolf. Can you be trans-species too? Does your own mental condition dictate external reality, yes or no?
Not necessarily.
Okay, then why do you believe that a biological man can become something that he is not? Because he thinks it.
He gave him the bait and switch. He asked the kid to define womanhood, and when the kid finally got a decent definition out, he pulled the rug out from underneath him. Because the kid's own definition was flawed and insulting. This man makes it clear what he thinks of these people's thoughts. Trans people are the same as those who do blackface or those who say they are wolves. They're just pretending, and he's not letting them pretend anymore.
You said that you're a trans woman.
A trans female, yes, ma'am, sir.
Do you have a... Are you telling us that you're unfamiliar with the large body of medical evidence of the harm that has come upon people that have gone through these processes?
I'm familiar with a large body of evidence that shows that providing good affirming care saves lives.
Are you saying that you're unaware of the large body of medical evidence of the harm that has come upon these people in these processes that have been gone through? Are you unaware of that body of evidence?
I will repeat what I just said.
Are you unaware of that body of evidence?
I will repeat what I just said.
You said that you're a trans woman.
A trans female, yes, ma'am, sir.
Do you have a...
That's horrible.
You're the one that brought that into the discussion.
You're the one that never said anything about genitalia.
Oh, it has everything to do with genitalia.
I don't know what my rights are right now.
Audience, if you want to stay in here.
I don't know what my rights are, but that question was highly inappropriate.
You do not have to answer any question. If you're through, we'll dismiss you.
Well, I'm not through with questions, but I'm not going to answer that question. That's highly inappropriate.
Again, you can say that, and that's your right. So.
Okay, I'm a healthcare professional, a doctor. Please treat me as such. Next question, please.
That's one way to get someone to stop talking. Ask about their genitalia. It really did stop that person right in their tracks.
I saw a woman a couple months back, professional soccer player, right? She goes on to ESPN or one of these sports channels, and she starts going like, I don't understand. How come female athletes don't make as much as male professional athletes? And all of these men had to sit there and act like they didn't know what the answer was. They had to sit there like dumbfounded, like, I don't know. Why is that? Literally, I'm sitting at home screaming at the TV because you don't sell any tickets. Nobody is going to women's soccer games. You're playing in a 20,000 seat arena. 1,500 people show up. That's not a good night. The promoter lost his on that. I'm not saying no professional female athletes, Serena Williams, the women in the UFC, but nobody's watching your sport. And then you're going to come and you're going to get mad at men. They keep doing that. Why are you yelling at us? It's not our job. It's not my job to give a about women's soccer, okay? I have men's sport to pay attention to. It's your right? Dude, look at the WNBA. Nobody in the WNBA got COVID. Nobody. They have been playing in front of 300 to 400 people a night for a quarter of a century. Not to mention, it's a male-subsidized league. We gave you a league. None of you showed up. Where are all the feminists? None of you went to the games. None of you. You failed them. Not me. Not men. Women failed the WNBA. Ladies, name your top 5 all-time WNBA players of all time. Come on. That's it. Name 5 WNBA teams. Name the WNBA team in your city. You can't do it. You don't give a about them. They play night in and night out in front of nobody. It's a tragedy, right? And then meanwhile, you look at the Kardashians, they're making billions. You look at those Real Housewives shows, they're making money hand over fist, because that's what women are watching. And the money listens. You don't want to watch you watch this. They just shoot it over there, drowning these in money. In purses, in shoes, in Botox. It's just raining. It's raining money. Yeah, so the money listens.
Bill Burr's just telling it how it is. Women can't be mad that WNBA stars are not making as much money as NBA stars. The NBA has sold out games constantly. The WNBA games never do. Sounds like some people need to show up for those games more often.
Okay, that's not socializing, and you know it. Antisocial behavior usually means doing things that are considered rejecting socialization, like rejecting other people, pushing things away, promoting things that other people actively end up considering less.
So then should pedophiles go to prison?
Pedophiles go to... I do not know what's the best way to handle pedophilia because how do we know? I don't think that anyone should molest a child, God forbid.
But hold on.
I really don't.
Why shouldn't a pedophile go to prison?
What? Again, we're getting really off topic. Let's go back to the ideas of good and evil and
we're talking about college as a scam, and you're a perfect example, like one of the best I've ever seen to show the intellectual drivel that is caught on a college campus.
Okay, because you think that I'm not being taught about the good, the pure. Well, let's go back to that, because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, the good, the true. We'll do a couple more minutes. The good, the true, and the beautiful, yes.
Right, so you think that that's something that can be quantified, can be taught, and that it...
And experienced.
And not only that, that it should be taught, that we should promote the ideas of good and beauty to other people.
Correct.
Okay, but let's remove it from that. What about just the idea of... Because remember, the ancient Greeks and Romans that you love so much, they didn't have the same ideas of God in the same way that we do. But
That's
they
correct.
still... Thank you for saying I'm correct. That was really nice of you.
It's true, you're right.
So when they wanted to learn, when they sought out learning, when they had schools of learning and all that kind of stuff, a lot of the times they didn't just teach things around ethics. They taught other stuff. They taught astrology, they taught medicine, they taught science, they taught arts, and people wanted to learn that.
He laid down the law on this goth woke college girl. You shouldn't be paid to learn how to complain and then get a career to go on teaching others to complain. Things that should be paid for you to learn should be things that are good, true, and beautiful in Charlie Kirk's eyes, not things like feminism.
I don't think there's any differences between races, but I think that when it comes to affirmative action, we're saying that there are differences.
Right.
That we're trying to say that things that don't matter should matter. So I don't think race matters. Affirmative action says race does matter.
What about like women also in fields like that? Like what I explained earlier.
I think that's even more dangerous, to be honest with you. If we're going to say that women should be Secret Service agents protecting Trump.
Not Secret Service. I'm talking about medicine, engineering, that type of thing.
Well, hold on. Okay, so should we try to have the same amount of female to male OBGYNs?
I think it should be similar to the amount of
OBGYNs,
the general population.
So hold on, 85% of all OBGYNs are female.
Yeah.
So now should we have parity so that men?
I have an OBGYN that's a man. That's not a problem.
That's not the point. The point is, should we have parity?
I think it should be similar to whatever the...
Got it, okay. So you're consistent. So women studying in the OBGYN field will be actively discriminated against, so a man can, because we must have parity.
It's not about people in the OBGYN specifically, it's about people in general. Men were, for example, women were not able to vote until less than 100 years ago, basically, right?
What does that have to do with
One second. So because of that, a lot of the laws, a lot of everything that's set in place was made by men, was excluding women, was creating like reforms and certain legislations that would specifically, support men rather than women because women don't have that ability.
Or support society. I don't think it was always about supporting
Well, for
men.
example, like what about what I brought up, endometriosis, or like the seatbelt accident, like all those stuff is due because we tend to favor men in specific.
Well, so I just don't believe that. First of all, because
I mean,
research
I
will go
can
where the money
show
is.
you,
And so if there was money in endometriosis research?
Not much because
Well,
men
that's
don't
why.
care.
So maybe it wasn't sexism. Maybe it was a monetary explanation.
Well, who has the money in a society?
Well, actually, women control more money than men in the country.
But women weren't able to have bank accounts until like less than 100 years ago, so they can't really build that generational wealth.
Do you think it's been a better thing with women's liberation in the last 20, 30 years?
Yeah, I would.
Do you think that's interesting? Do you think women are happier in America today than they were 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Then why are they the most depressed group in the history of the species? Women are the most miserable they've ever been. Like, why is that?
I don't think that's because we're allowed to have money.
No,
now,
I'm asking but it's like more liberation, more college degrees, more birth control, less marriage.
I would
less
argue
kids.
otherwise. I don't know where you got that data.
No, everybody agrees that women are super miserable. As far as versus 30 years ago.
Well, it could be the fact that because women weren't able to go to a psychologist or
or maybe it's because they're not doing the one thing that they want to do, which is to get married and have children.
Yeah, she's saying that no, it's actually opposite. It's saying that women actually. Says women around the world report higher levels of life satisfaction than men, but at the same time report more daily stress.
Yeah,
so we're just held to
type in women antidepressant use 2024. It is the highest it has ever been.
But there's more layers to it than that. It can't just be that. You have to look at why are women more likely to go and talk to a psychologist. There's the differences in that.
So, but I'm just curious. So, do you think women are generally happier in 2024 than they were in 1964?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I just had the question of how would you want to fix that?
There's no problem to fix. Pure meritocracy.
No, I'm just saying how do you bring people with diverse opinions?
Oh yeah, I mean I don't care that much about. I care about excellence.
So women you used to be studying
I don't
into
care
stuff
about
like
putting women in
endometriosis
STEM.
and
I
stuff
care
like
about being
that.
a strong.
No, I'm talking about being able to look into those type of things like endometriosis, all this stuff. How do we make that safer for other people without bringing people that care about it?
Not that important to me. I want the country we once had, which was the greatest country ever, where we put excellence and we put superior intellect above sensitive racial politics. Not interesting to me.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk put this feminist in her place. She asked where he got the data about women being more depressed now than ever, and like he said, everyone agrees. There's your data right there. Charlie Kirk let her know these women are probably depressed because they aren't doing the thing they really want to do, and that's just get married and have children.
I'd like to start off by noticing that as each speaker gets up here, this speaker then goes ahead and answers, and his supporters get to go ahead and applaud. I would like to start off by applauding the people that had the courage to stand up against this hate.
You're certainly welcome to applaud anybody you like. I take no responsibility for who applauds for what.
Well, you haven't given them space. That was my point. But I do have questions here. What I was saying is the structure here has been very specifically designed to go ahead and to support a particular point of view.
Could you give an example of that? Because here's what I think happens. People come up and ask me a question, and then I give them an answer, and then somebody else comes up and asks me a question, and then I give them a different answer. Could you please show me the nefarious and unfair structure of that Q&A?
I'll be happy to, because after their last comment, you get a chance to comment, and your supporters go ahead and applaud. When the speaker is then going ahead and when the person from the audience is talking, you immediately talk afterwards, and there's no space.
Yes, that's true, because they're asking me a question, because I'm the speaker and they're the ones asking the questions.
Exactly.
Right. So I guess they can go give a speech somewhere else, and then their supporters can go and applaud them. But that's not what we're engaged in here.
So you do agree then that there was...
I agree that I'm giving a speech and people are asking me questions. I agree with that, yes. I didn't know that I had to clarify that.
This older man wants this guy to pause more and allow for more people to applaud. He thinks the lack of a space for applause is what's stopping people from applauding, and he apparently thinks that's a large issue. The speaker is just baffled as to what he is supposed to do about other people applauding or not applauding, as he doesn't control their hands.
What do you have to say for people who don't fit in your definition of man or woman? I'm a biologist. I understand the biology. Are you saying that a woman is only a person who has two X chromosomes and a man is someone who only has an X and a Y chromosome?
I think that's the scientific definition, yes.
It's actually not, because there can be people with XXY. There can be Y chromosome inactivation. The way that this biology works is that you have genes. Those genes make proteins. Those proteins develop the traits that you define as men and women. They develop the features that you define as male. They develop the genitalia. But you can be a woman with female genitalia and be XY. You can be a man, but you can have XX chromosome.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about, Grace. You're talking about a very rare condition known as intersexed.
One in 100 people experience chromosomal differences in sex.
Okay, but not 1 in 100 have different genitalia or ambiguous genitalia.
And what do you say to those people?
Well, what you say is that's a situation that is not the norm. We're not saying that they're not people, obviously. As I understand it, maybe you know more about it than me, when you do have a truly intersexed person, at that point, either the parents or when they're old enough, they can decide which way they're going to orient themselves and they can get the appropriate surgery. But that's not what we're experiencing in our culture.
So you're saying that it's okay for people to decide their gender?
In that situation, but that's not what we're talking about in our culture. What we're talking about in our culture are people with perfectly normal functioning sexual organs trying to have them removed and trying to transition to another gender, which is impossible scientifically.
Have you ever doubted that you're a man?
Mm-hmm.
You've doubted that you...
Oh, have I ever doubted I'm a man? No, I have never doubted I'm a man.
Then what do you say to a transgender person who has never doubted their gender? You're saying that we all change and that obviously transgenderism is a product of some kind of phase, but you've never doubted that you're a man. So
no,
where's your development of this change?
Grace, I'm not denying there are people truly with gender dysphoria. I've already said that. What I'm saying is the way out of that problem is not surgery according to the data.
This guy is really trying to explain everything calmly to this girl because she keeps giving him rare instances and trying to make that seem like that's the overwhelming majority. It's very rare that people experience these situations that she described, so rare medical conditions shouldn't apply to the masses who don't experience that same condition.
Who is his co-author?
Who is co-author?
Yeah, Engels. Good. I'm glad college is really paying off for you. Hey. But it's okay. It's fine. He comes up here and insults my intelligence. What are your qualifications? Doesn't even know the co-author of the Communist Manifesto or Das Kapital. But no, let me just...
Does my lack of knowledge on that mean that I have no knowledge? Again, is that the same thing? You came up here and
insulted me. And you came up here, guns a-blazing, man. And let me just ask, again, what did I say that was wrong? I said that under the generally agreed upon definition of communism and socialism, which are interchangeable terms, one is a more harsh degree of the other, is that the elimination of the family, the elimination of private property, and the deprivation of basic human rights such as right to speech, right to assembly, and right to worship. How is that not a good definition of communism or socialism?
That explains fascism better.
Well, but in the Communist Manifesto, Marx said, quote, "We are here to destroy the nuclear family and eradicate the family because it was the original oppressive tyrannical structure." He said religion is the opiate of the masses and that private property must be eradicated. I have just now documented all three of those with evidence back to original source documents. And then in practice, Russia did all those three things when they were the Soviet Union. So where am I wrong?
But then at the same time, if you claim that those are all negative things, then why do you practice certain things in the doctrines that you just stated?
Well, I'm not trying to take people's stuff away. I want people to have bigger families, and I want churches to remain open.
Yeah, but the thing is your biggest point that everyone here is for is that you're a potential white supremacist. So.
What evidence do you have that I'm a racist?
I was just literally watching a video of you talking about whiteness as a whole, talking about whiteness as a concept, okay? And you were trying to explain how white privilege doesn't exist.
Correct, it doesn't.
You are a white man. How do you know?
Because I have eyes.
Because you have eyes. That's not a description.
So what can a black person do that I can't do in America, or
what can
vice
a black
versa?
person do?
What can I do a black person can't do?
Let's think of some history right here. Let's go through the history of redlining.
I don't need a history. I don't need.
Yes,
listen.
No,
you're talking about white privilege.
You do need a history lining. Clearly, you need a history lesson.
I know your talking points better than you do, and I've read all the literature that you have. I've probably forgotten more about the literature.
History affects the present day as well, and you know that's true. If you went to college, you would know.
Well, hold on a second, but let me.
So then why are you wearing the College of the Scam shirt? Drop out.
Well, Well, because you could.
So it's because you don't believe your own beliefs, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, you can admit something's a scam and still get through it. That's why he's wearing it. Okay.
Why?
You could feel like you're getting ripped off by an airline and still want to get to New York.
That's not what we're talking
okay?
about anymore.
Like you're like, I'm getting ripped off by a $1,000 ticket, but you still get on the airplane. Like it doesn't make you a hypocrite. It means that the people are ripping you off, and a lot of you are getting ripped off. But no. So as far as white privilege, just without the history lesson of Jim Crow, segregation, imperialism, colonialism, slavery, all the stuff that I know that you're going to say. But just concretely, in America today, what can a white person do that a black person can't do?
Black applicants to jobs are 50% less likely to get jobs if they have a black-sounding name.
That's not even close to being true. That's not even close to being true.
That is a literal...
in fact, it's the opposite.
I'm not going to argue your lived experience. I'm not going to... No.
See, now you have to listen to him under your rules because a black person is going to say you're wrong.
I am. He can say I'm wrong. I know.
Come on up to the mic.
I know. I read your.
My name's Keemon Dixon. I have a really black name. Please tell me how 50% of my internships have been denied when I've worked for Senator Mike Lee, Mayor Trent Sachs, Speaker Mike Schultz.
Hold on.
I worked for Congressman Burgess Owens. I've actually worked on his campaign. I've worked on the campaigns of John Huntsman Jr. Please tell me how my black experience and my black name has not given me. Go ahead.
So, this kid tried to come up and insult Charlie Kirk, and then when he couldn't remember the co-author of a book, he got shot down and insulted right back. Not a good look to not know the name of an author, and then try to spin around and call Charlie Kirk a white supremacist. Charlie Kirk was there to tell that kid white privilege doesn't exist, and he would know he's white.
Certainly creates a sense of community. I don't see any problem with that. We have sororities, we have male-only dorms.
Right. So racial differences are irrelevant and immaterial. Chromosomal differences actually do matter. But let me ask you a question. Are there differences between races?
No, not biologically.
Then why would we have different dormitories for races?
Culture.
Segregation is what you're arguing for, my friend.
No, sir. No, sir.
How is it not segregation to have blacks in their own dorm?
You've just pigeonholed me, essentially. You've essentially just you've distracted from my original argument.
No, you did that to yourself. Let's reemphasize. So Ibram X. Kendi argues, who is one of the leading thinkers of critical theory, race theory, discrimination today to atone for discrimination of yesterday. We have black-only graduation ceremonies at Columbia University, black-only dormitories across the country, for example, at Western Washington University. Can you join me today in saying black-only dormitories are evil, wrong, and it's segregation?
You still haven't answered my question about why does this history simultaneously mean nothing?
Well, I'm happy to answer that, but the fact you're dodging segregation in America, why is that?
I'm arguing against segregation.
So you're against black-only dormitories?
Yes.
Well, you said it was a force of community, and then for your not for critical race theory...
That's an option. We have choice.
Oh, so you could choose to segregate.
That's a...
What do you think of white-only dormitories?
What?
Would you support white-only dormitories?
Everybody has a choice.
So I think white-only and black-only anything is evil and wrong. That's why I hate critical theory and critical race theory, because when it's put in practice... When it's put in practice, you start to discriminate people based on race. So we're now south of the Mason-Dixon line in North Carolina. We did a lot of work to get rid of segregation in this country. Why are you trying to bring it back?
What work?
The Civil Rights Act of 1964.
In this state?
Yeah, actually in this state. Are there black-only bathrooms out there I'm unaware of, or white-only bathrooms?
Nah.
Right. A lot of work was done in this state.
Your face is small.
This kid is arguing for dorms to be exclusive to certain races. He is saying it's for culture, but it was made abundantly clear to him the U.S. did this a while ago, and it was called segregation.
Well, that's what they said it was designed to do.
Okay, you cited freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm
you get
very
my
glad that I have
no, but you
exercised
get my
my freedom of
point.
speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and
do
that is
you-
what you should do. But
And
you're
do you
exercising
think-
your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
Ha, gotcha.
you have got me. I'm trying to work
about
that through in
time.
my head. Yeah. It took a while.
It did, yeah.
Took a while.
It was the best question to an answer in an interview because when the lefty tried to come up with a follow-up question, she admitted he had stumped her.
Thank you for the market. Good night. Thank you very much, ladies. I'll bring it.
Unfortunately, we have to stick with already moved for someone else. And we have to say something more to someone else. I do appreciate your point of view, and I do understand that in some sort of way. However, we have that pressure for someone else. This is someone else.
These people were protesting a famous steak restaurant and they didn't want to order anything. So, if they're not ordering anything, they get carried out and plopped down on the sidewalk.
And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
I never called you a racist.
But of course you are suggesting, and
Well,
I
you're
must say
also
one of the
suggesting that
reasons
white
people don't like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the great replacement theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever. I've said what I've said to you right now like 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't
And
actually
my
finished my
response is,
question.
no, I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer it.
Okay, well, this is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting where 11 black Americans were killed.
on.
2
You know what
white
I mean?
Americans were killed.
Like,
and it's also
okay,
inspired...
it's not, first of all...
It's inspired one of the worst Australian guns
How do
of
they
all
get
time
people
to
this
shoot
stupid in the media? I guess it doesn't pay well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest, they're factual. That's not hate, that's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually. Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to. And nobody in charge cares. And so that's my position. That doesn't inspire mass shootings. How dare you try to tie me to some lunatic who murdered people? How dare you, actually? And in fact, I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, Hitler wore those shoes. A lot of people are saying that you're like Hitler. Can you explain those shoes? Hitler wore exactly the same shoes, and you're like, I've got nothing to do with Hitler. Well, that's how I feel about your absurd, disingenuous question.
Right, so therefore you support gun control?
What? I thought it couldn't
want
get
any more
dumber, but it
shootings?
did. No, I don't support disarming law-abiding people so they can't defend themselves. So the government has a monopoly on violence? I don't think so. First of all, in my country, that's illegal, as you know. But moreover, it should be illegal in every country. A sovereign person has the right to defend himself and his family. Period. And that said, I'm totally opposed to harming anyone. Anyone. Have you been are you concerned about the war in Ukraine? And the countless innocents being murdered there every single day? I doubt you are. Probably Putin bad. I am. I'm a Christian. I hate violence. I hate mass shootings. I have guns at home and often on my person when I'm in the United States, I'm proud to say. Because I want to defend myself and those I love against violence. That's the point. I'm not perpetrating crimes. I'm not shooting strangers. I'm defending what I love. And if you're against that, I guess I would ask why. Why would you be against that?
Well, so you don't think you harbor any kind of responsibility for these hate crimes?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be charitable. I was like, maybe you're just pretending to be dumb. Now I don't think it's an act.
Like Tucker Carlson said, happy people have children. It doesn't make him a racist for not wanting more people to come into the country from other countries, because he just wants more room for the people already here to have children. And he let that reporter know she was stupid for thinking so.
Judge Brindisi, should biological men be able to expose themselves to unwilling women, including underage girls?
Senator, that's not a view I share.
So your answer is no?
Senator, I want to be somewhat careful because there are a number of cases that are working.
Is your answer yes? You said that's not a view you share.
It's not.
Then why, just a moment ago, Senator Blackburn was asking you about, as a congressman, you were a congressman from 2019 to 2021.
That's correct.
You were original co-sponsor of and you voted for an Orwellian-named extreme piece of Democrat legislation called the Equality Act. The Equality Act mandated that biological men could play in women's sports, could go to women's bathrooms, could go to women's locker room. The women were not asked. The women were not asked if biological men could go into their locker rooms and disrobe with them. You sponsored it and voted for it. You just said a minute ago you didn't agree with men exposing themselves to unwilling women. If you didn't agree with that, why did you sponsor and vote for legislation that would mandate that women be victimized like that?
Senator, it's been a number of years since I sponsored that legislation, and I do understand that
it's been 4 years.
It's
been 4 years.
I understand, Senator. For the last 2 years, I have been serving.
I'm not asking about the last 2 years. You were a member of Congress. You sponsored it and voted for it. Why did you believe women and girls don't have a right to be free from harassment, to be free from biological men disrobing in front of them without the women or girls having any right to say anything about it or to protest anything about it? Why did you vote for that?
Senator, my recollection of the legislation is that it would prevent discrimination based on gender.
Your recollection is contrary to the explicit text of the statute. Are you fond of ignoring the text of statutes?
Senator, as a sitting judge now, and if I'm fortunate to be confirmed as a district court judge, I will follow statutory.
But you didn't when you were a congressman. You sponsored it. You voted for it.
It's definitely a simple question. Should men be able to expose themselves to women? Why can't there be a simple answer? And Ted Cruz let him know all about the bill he sponsored long ago that seemed to be okay with this, citing all the details and all the language surrounding them.
What do you think about that? I don't have to think about it. I've lived it. I've been the guy at the Oscars without my name being called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when my name is called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when everybody thought they was going to call my name and they didn't. So I've lived it.
So what would you say to the people who are looking at this process and saying it's unfair?
Yeah, and so what? We're going to give up? If you're looking for an excuse, you'll find one.
In race.
You can find it wherever you like. You can't live like that. You just do the best you can do.
Denzel puts it so perfectly, it's unfair, so what? You want to look for excuses and give up? Fine. You won't ever win that way, so choose whatever you want to do.
Race relationships have to do with race relationships. You're white or whatever you are, I'm black or whatever I am. We're standing here talking now. That's how we get things done. You can't legislate love. The President of the United States can't legislate us into liking each other. We have to step forward and ask questions about each other and engage. There's no law that says, oh, because I'm president, you all got to get along now.
And when people want Denzel to speak about what type of progress politicians should make when it comes to race relations, he squashes that. It won't happen from politicians. It will come from the people themselves.
I've really enjoyed listening to you speak. I am against your personal beliefs and whatever. And I wanted to ask, because you're, talking about how we shouldn't trust the government, we shouldn't trust all these people, and I'm curious because I noticed in your speech, when you're speaking, you commit a lot of logical fallacies. And I can give you some examples such as composition, division, ad hominems, and, many, many others. And I learned about these in my rhetoric class because my class, which was very, very Republican driven, wanted us to be good arguers, so that way blah, 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 blah.
Do you mind getting to the question? Because we have a lot of people that are waiting.
Yeah, of
Go
course,
ahead.
no problem.
Thank you.
I just want to say, why should we trust you? What's the point if you're going to commit all these fallacies? Why should we believe in you specifically?
Okay, well, if you think that anything that I have said today, just try to stick to the facts and don't focus too much on what you perceive to be logical fallacies. Just go look up Margaret Sanger, go look up Lyndon Baines Johnson, go look up the things that I'm telling you, and let me tell you that if you look that up and what you find out is that I completely lied today, then you shouldn't trust me. The reason why I'm standing up here is because I'm confident that I am sharing with people the truth. And the reason why I'm still up here, by the way, despite the fact that the entire media, an entire Democratic establishment, an entire BLM nation that was built overnight has been against me. The reason why my audience continues to grow is because when you are for truth and you are for God, who can be against you? You're going to win. Thank you for your question.
This girl was taking way too long to get to her question, so this woman let her know to hurry up. This isn't an event solely for her. And then once she asked the question, she shut her down in front of everyone.
Say, if you vote for Donald Trump, you're a white supremacist. How? How? Because you support that man in office.
That's not an argument. I'm going to need proof that makes me a white supremacist. You're going to have to break down the argument.
That's not my job to say that.
You just accused me of being a white supremacist. You should be able to back that up.
Are you voting for Donald Trump?
I sure am.
That's my proof. It speaks for itself.
This is what's going on in our country, guys. I mean, I honestly don't know how else to explain what's going on.
Why aren't you wearing a mask?
Because I don't want to. Why don't you call the cops on me? You want okay, then they have a problem with the police, but then they're mad at me because I'm not wearing a mask. Guess who would enforce that? Guess who would enforce you wearing a mask? The cops. The cops that you guys hate so much.
Who said I hated cops?
We know you do. Okay, very cool. This is what's being taught in the schools. I don't know, you guys probably get your opinions from Twitter, which is pathetic. These are the people that tell you these are the people going out there filming people, getting people fired, calling them racist because they support Donald Trump.
People
I know.
for their actions.
You just called me a white supremacist because I cast a vote. Are you voting for Joe Biden?
Yes, I am.
Then you're a pedophile.
No.
Yes, you
Trump's
are.
a pedophile.
You're a pedophile.
How?
You like to sniff kids.
What are you talking about?
Exactly. What are you talking about, dude? Yeah, all right, I'm ending this. I'm not going to be around someone.
Too if I knew I was wrong.
Well, then prove that I'm wrong.
I don't have to.
This woman is like, it's not my job to explain my accusations. She just wants to toss out insults but not back them up with any evidence. But this reporter shuts her down because she has no explanation as to why she would use the insult she does, and then she used the same argument on her.
Not care about the 400,000 plus unarmed black babies in the womb that are just destroyed and terminated?
You know why we shouldn't? Because that's not the same issue.
400,000 black people are murdered every year.
400,000? Are you saying abortions?
That's murder, yes.
No.
It's not. What is it?
You know, it's a woman's right to choose is what it is.
Right to choose to murder a black person. I thought you were against black people being killed. That's the #1 killer of black people in this country. Abortion. 400,000 Americans, black Americans, are wiped out. They will never exist anymore. Their DNA is gone forever because of abortion. We are eliminating their chance to even... You know who can't breathe? You want to say, oh, I can't breathe? Unarmed... Black babies in the womb cannot breathe.
They don't have lungs, first of all.
Oh, they don't have lungs in the womb?
Not at the ages that they're being murdered.
Tell me the ages.
What is it, up to 20 weeks?
20-week-old baby, or 20-week baby doesn't have lungs developing? What makes a person a person? What makes a black person a person?
I don't know how this has to do with...
You want me to say Black Lives Matter? Unborn Black Lives Matter. Unborn Black Lives Matter. They matter. You want to talk about systemic oppression and racism in this country? Look at Planned Parenthood. Look at the abortion industry. 400,000 guys.
That's
400,000.
That's not murder.
Then what if we prevent someone
choosing to change to do what she wants with her body? Do you think that you should not have privacy with your doctor? That your doctor should be able to go out and tell you, like, everyone what you're doing with your body?
Does that life inside that woman have privacy to be able to actually live?
That's not what I asked. Should your doctor be able to go around telling people what you're doing with your body?
That is not the abortion case.
It is the
No, it's not.
It is literally the abortion case. No, it is.
Who goes around arguing against abortion because your doctors might say it? That's not an argument. That's not what's happening.
That is. You have the
Do you
right
think it's
with your
wrong?
doctor.
So when do we cut off abortion? What week?
That's not my choice to make. But
people's lives are ending, and you don't have an opinion about when we shouldn't
lives
kill
are
them.
ending on the street, and you could give a because you don't want to say Black Lives Matter, because you don't want to make change within the police systems.
Did I say that? You didn't ask me about the police system. I'm asking you if you care about Black lives. 400,000 guys. 400,000 Black babies every year terminated, gone.
That's not the issue.
Does that bother you?
That women get abortions?
Does it bother you that
women get
400,000
abortions?
Black people are murdered every year, don't even get a chance to breathe?
No.
It doesn't bother you.
It does not bother
you
me that
chant
people
Black
get
Lives
abortions.
Matter.
Yes, I do.
But you don't care about unborn Black people.
But I don't care about women getting abortions because they have the right to choose freely what they want to do with their body.
It's not their body anymore.
It is their body.
Is it their DNA? Oh, okay. Let me ask. Does a pregnant woman have 4 arms or 20 toes? Yes or no?
She has 2 arms and 10 toes.
And she carries someone else's body with another 2 arms, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you acknowledge it is a person in there.
It is
a
something else
body.
inside of her. Yeah, it is.
What is it?
It is a fetus inside of her.
Fetus of?
What?
A fetus of what?
I don't know what you're
A
getting
hamburger, a plant, a statue. It's a fetus of a human being, and they matter. They don't even get a chance to breathe. You guys chant, I can't breathe in the streets.
I don't know how you
but
can say.
You're trying to get
Make
loud.
the issue abortion.
Well, see, this is what they do when we have a conversation. Well, not rather a debate. They get very loud so that the people around them will look and be like, "Oh yeah, she's so progressive. She loves Black people." But you won't tell these people that you support murdering 400,000 Black people.
I support a woman's right to choose.
Tell them exactly what it is.
I support a woman's right to choose what she wants to do with her body, including abortion.
You weren't very loud then, were you?
I support a woman's right to choose.
Choose to do what?
To abort a fetus.
A person, a human. Your mind is not going to get changed. I think that's very just wacky of you guys to sit here. Black Lives Matter. Hold on. Black Lives Matter, but by God, we want to talk. We want to talk about actual Black people dying.
No, you want to talk about something that isn't of the issue right now. You want to make something that's not the issue to avoid the fact that you have no reason that you cannot say Black Lives Matter.
I just told you, it's a communist organization. They literally claim. No, there is no outside of that. They took. Have you ever watched interviews from their leaders?
The leaders of Black Lives Matter?
Yes. Have you watched any interviews from them?
I've seen the protests.
Have you watched any interviews from Black Lives Matter leaders?
Who are the leaders that you're interviewing?
There was a woman on CNN. She's a Black Lives Matter leader.
This woman tried to use some sort of an argument about whether people should donate their organs or not as to why she is for abortion. Apparently, she needed to hear from this man that a baby is not an organ. A baby is a baby. The argument was flawed from her first breath.
And we look at who's up for the presidency, Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Who would be better to run Black America?
I'd rather choose a Biden over a racist pedophile.
Okay. How is he racist?
You kidding? How is Trump racist?
I'll get to you. How is Trump racist?
Do you want to answer this for me?
Nope, this is for you. You made the claim, back it up.
No.
Well, you said I'm an idiot.
He has had multiple people be killed because of police brutality.
He has had people be killed.
Ma'am, I live in a town where there was riots.
Very good. I'm glad that that's where you come from. However, who has he had killed?
He's caused his police to do it. He has militia-ized this country.
He has militia-ized this country.
I can't speak English because I suck at it, but ma'am.
Don't assume my gender.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Don't assume your gender. What are your pronouns then?
They and Z and princess.
Princess?
Yes. How is he a racist?
I'm not going to answer you.
Why? Because you can't or because you won't?
No, because I'm pissed at you and you should leave our campus.
Oh, no. This is a free country, right? Whose streets? My streets. Today.
Yeah, so this is a private campus.
No, it's not. It is a public university. I just want to know how Donald Trump is racist.
Because he has had his militia, our military, be used to protect buildings against people who have been killed multiple times.
He needs to protect the buildings. Why? Why would he need to protect the buildings?
For no reason, because people
For no reason, or because they're lighting them on fire and they're killing police officers?
Not people who are killing police officers, it's people like you who are causing them to light the buildings on fire.
People like me who support the police, who is against Black Lives Matter terrorist organization, I'm the one that's causing them to tear down the buildings and light them on fire?
Ma'am, it has proven that people who are against the Black Lives Matter movement will go and purposely force the riots and blame it on people who are...
Can you give me proof for that?
There are many articles that you can look up for yourself.
Give me one.
Someone makes a claim about Trump being racist, and then when asked to back it up, they try to pass the buck to someone else. And when pressed further, they say they don't want to answer. And then when pressed even further, she's got nothing. This reporter lets the Wokies know, don't make claims that you can't back up.
Would you like to have a conversation?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like you. I think you spread hate. I think you spread bigotry. I think you piss a lot of people off because I mean, you're just an awful person. I don't think you really want to debate because you're just here to piss people off and energize your crowd of racists.
What have I ever said that's racist?
Oh, what?
Can you name one thing?
I'm Hispanic.
Can I support Charlie?
Can you name
Does that mean anything?
Can you name a second thing I've ever said that's racist?
I think you're just trying to play a game, and I think this is obviously going to be used.
What
in
have
your
I ever
favor,
said
but
that's
I just want to hate you. You're awful. Get off my campus.
When have I ever said anything that's hateful? Have a nice day. He can't say anything I've ever said that's racist, because I've never said anything that's racist. That is the American left in one picture, everybody.
He asked for an example of something that was racist that he said from the angry man. Then he asked if he could name a second thing that he ever said that was racist, and the man had no answers, just anger.
My friend is dead. How do you answer that?
We have a blue light policy. Which means whenever we have roadblocks, as soon as we hear sirens, we see the blue lights, people move out of the way. Even when people are gluing in the road, there's always one lane that is kept clear so that people can move out of the way. And we have never had any complaints from either ambulances, fire brigade, or any other emergency services.
The video footage exists, and the lady can't complain now because she's dead. Let me ask you another question, Phoebe. Let me ask you, what bills do you currently pay? Who pays for your accommodation at university?
My student loan.
Well, have you ever paid any bills in your lifetime?
No.
So you don't know what it's like to be a homeowner and not to be able to afford your energy bills, and then see some stupid young people throwing soup over a painting in a gallery that has nothing to do with the fact they can't afford to pay their bills. You don't know what it's like to pay a bill, Phoebe, do you?
No, but I have empathy for those people. You know, the climate crisis is fueled, but the cost of living crisis is fueled by the cost of oil crisis. They are both one crisis. It's a crisis of greed of our government and their billionaire friends.
What do you understand about an ordinary family who can't afford to pay their fuel bills, who needs ordinary fuel to be delivered, but because of green taxation, their bills are now so expensive they can't afford them? And if we stop oil, how much more expensive do you think fuel's going to be, Phoebe? Or is it that you're just spouting out words that you and your friend think look good? How is it related to stopping oil to throw soup over a painting in a gallery? How is that related? How is it helping the poorest people in my country?
I understand that right now fossil fuels are subsidised 32 times more than renewables, even though renewables are 9 times cheaper. Would you rather your bills were £3,500 or £400?
I would rather that you and your friends stopped wreaking havoc in the City of London. I'd rather you stop throwing soup over paintings, stop putting orange paint on the windows of Harrods, stop sitting in roads so that my friend couldn't get the treatment that she needed. And I'd rather you went out, worked a bit. Maybe you could do some litter picking on a beach. Maybe you could do something that was practical and helpful. But I don't think being obtrusive and obstructive and lecturing ordinary people when you have no idea what it's like to try and work and make ends meet in the UK. You talk about millions of people. You talk about people who are in poverty. You have no idea what that's like because you live in the rarefied atmosphere of a university at some wokerati place, and you think what you're doing is changing the planet. I think what you're doing is pissing people off, and I think you could allocate your energies more effectively by going out and picking up litter on a beach.
So these protesters were blocking traffic, and they claim that they let emergency vehicles through for emergencies. They claim. However, the woman who died because the ambulance couldn't get to her in time due to their street blockage might have something different to say, and this protester didn't have any answers for that. Not to mention, this journalist highlighted how she doesn't even have to pay bills, so how can she even be helping anyone?
You know what's also a leading cause of climate crisis? Planes which carry vast amounts of your avocados and your almonds from California and fly them thousands of miles to your table here in your vegan cafes. And then they also go in trucks. And that is an environmental hazard too. So you're not only are you killing billions of bees, you're destroying the planet. And yet you have the brass neck to sit here in between munching your almonds and your avocados and start preaching to me about how virtuous you are about not killing animals and saving the planet. I'm like, hang on, you're destroying the planet and you're killing billions of bees. I don't get it.
Can I respond?
And you're wrecking Big Ben.
Can I respond?
And Trafalgar Square, and you're breaking up Harrods.
I hear that you're very frustrated.
No, I just find it such absurd, hypocritical nonsense. How does he do?
I would really like to respond to that.
Go on then.
So a leading study from Oxford, which is the most comprehensive study on food and the climate that has ever been done before, has said that animal products, that's farming, animals and fishing, is the leading cause.
Is a bee an animal?
It surpasses, I'm not finished, sorry. It surpasses.
Ola, is a bee an animal?
It surpasses.
Is a bee an animal?
Piers, can I?
Is a bee an animal?
It surpasses all plant-based options.
Is one of these things an animal?
Of course a bee is an animal.
If a bee's an animal, why are you slaughtering them?
Why are you not talking about the most important issue that is facing our planet
Because
today?
it's rank hypocrisy.
It is
isn't
not
it?
hypocrisy.
I meet so many vegans who devour avocados and almonds and don't seem to realise it involves the slaughter of billions of bees.
Both almonds and avocados are less damaging to the planet.
Oh, they're less damaging. And what about how they get flown here from California? What about how they get trucked across Europe?
That study in Oxford, that is exactly what it is
the
about.
Planet.
No,
anyway, look, I'm starving and you're not going to persuade me. And my response to you destroying all these things is to have a Big Mac. Because you know what? It's a free country, it's a democracy, and I'm allowed to eat meat, and I'm certainly allowed to eat meat when someone who kills bees to feed their avocado habit, mine.
The vegan activist is giving her opinion about how killing animals is not only wrong, but that agriculture is one of the leading causes of the horrendous climate crisis we find ourselves in. But Piers Morgan says that another cause is planes and trucks, which, along with moving him and other people around, also move almonds and avocados. So he thinks if we aren't stopping that, why stop anything?
It just make you a Me? Yeah, you. How's that make me that? What do you mean? Why does it make me that for not kissing you? Because anyone here would. Really? Yeah, I bet. Watch this. All right, okay, yeah, prove it to me. Okay, wait. Watch this. They kiss me for me.
This person thought anyone would give them a kiss. Only when the theory was tested, quite the opposite was proved.
I just want to point out, you mentioned that 99% of scientists agree that man-made global warming is a very, very serious problem. The number that is usually cited, speaking of hyperbole, is 97%. And this was the line in the Al Gore movie. This is the line that people cite. That number is completely bogus. It is made up. Lock it away with the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. It is not true. That number is based on 4 studies. NASA cites 4 studies to back it up. One is by the historian Naomi Oreskes that has serious methodological problems because it only cites abstracts of papers. When you actually look into what she cites, she gets to 75% consensus. There was then a rebuttal of that. There was a refutation of it that showed that not only is it not 75%, in 2008 they showed it was actually 7% of those scientists explicitly endorsed the IPCC. The second one came out, it found 97% from the scientist John Cook. This was immediately debunked in the Science and Education. Actually only found that 1% of scientists surveyed explicitly supported the IPCC conclusion of catastrophic climate change. The third study was a 2-minute survey that was sent out to 10,000 people. 3,000 responded. They took out the scientists who would have been in fields that possibly could have attributed warming to the sun. And
since you're trying to, instead of going through all the specific lists,
None of us have
a library with us to go and and look and check these studies. So let me ask you, instead of rebutting that,
I knew I should have asked Ruben Studdard to moderate this debate.
Don't worry. I'm sure he rehearsed that line in the bathroom this morning. So since you're rebutting things that he was mentioning,
yeah.
Why don't we have you rebut the questions that he asked, which were specifically, why not do something about it? Because
I don't want to destroy 5.8 million jobs and get rid of 90% of American
but
energy.
here's the question.
He explains it isn't 99% of scientists who support that global warming is happening. It's a lesser number. So if it isn't 99%, then he thinks we shouldn't believe any of it.
Did you think that slavery and ensuing Jim Crow laws had a lasting impact on the black community in the United States?
Some, and that's a good question. So if you correlate all the impact of Jim Crow and slavery, I would say that you could generously say 26% single motherhood in the black community in the 1960s. So about 26% of all black babies born in the 1950s and 1960s were born to a single mother. Now it's 77%. So I would ask you, why did it jump 50 points, 50%, since the Civil Rights Act as America got significantly less racist?
So that's fine. I don't know why it jumped. Who cares? But
Well, it wasn't slavery or Jim Crow. It
No.
was something else.
So the only lasting impact that slavery had on the U.S. was that less black families had fathers.
No, not necessarily. But have you ever known anyone that's owned a slave?
No, but I know a few presidents who did.
You know them personally? So you know anyone that was ever a slave?
Well, no, because... So, okay, I don't know anyone who was a slave. So it had no impact?
No, it had some impact. The question is, did it have an impact that is measurable and significant enough now in 2021, where we saw a key metric that influenced the livelihood of the black community, like single motherhood rate, that as America got less racist, all of a sudden now 77% of black babies are born without a father, where before it was 26%. And I suppose the question is this, because this is the question about systemic racism, right? What law that is in practice today actively discriminates against black people?
So here's what I would say to that. The idea of capitalism and America, like you said, is it doesn't matter who you are, show me what you got, is fresh start. So what would happen if you had like 150 years in a country for your family to build wealth, to own a house, to have a job, to get college education for your kids, to build generational wealth. And then you took another family who didn't have the opportunity to do any of that for 150 years and then set them off on the same even starting point. Is that really an even starting point? And would that not result in some kind of systemic disadvantage for those people?
The black middle class was the fastest growing demographic in the 1940s and 1950s until the Great Society Act and that intervention. It's very tempting to do what you're doing. And I'm not faulting you for it because you've probably been propagandized to believe it. And that's okay, because I think you're actually a victim in this case because you've been misled to want to believe that things you never lived under, never understood, and that I think you are partially seeing had a disproportionate impact in the world that you're living in today. So for example, if that were to be true, then first-generation immigrants would not be able to quickly be able to make good choices and move up the ladder in this country, which I think we have some first-generation immigrants here tonight. Now,
this student tried to make it sound like just because black people haven't had as many hundreds of years as white people to build generational wealth that there is systemic racism. But Charlie Kirk let him know that can't be true. Everyone gets an equal starting point. It's not like no black people and no immigrants succeed, so if some of them can, then all of them can.
And you just shouted something. Can you repeat what you're saying?
I told them to keep America racist. Of course, I don't believe that. But I think that's what they believe. So we need to call them out on it every single time.
Absolutely. What makes you think that just those people over there would support that?
Well, they support the president. The president's a racist.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of those logical, problems
So
that you do in
something
school.
that I see a lot of people, a lot of Trump supporters ask is, where is the proof that he is racist? Do you want to set that to bed and give us the proof?
I would say every other tweet would be proof right there. When he talks about African Americans, when he only calls out African American athletes, for whatever malfeasance he sees. God, what are all the others?
The recent attacks on the new congresswoman of color and his comments about the congressman from Baltimore. I mean, the list is endless.
That has been a big one, Baltimore. Can you go more into depth about how that is the R word?
I'm sorry?
How is that racist? Because a lot of people, I've seen so many people, that's not racist. Let's put it to bed. What makes his statements about Baltimore racist?
I can't.
Another person yelling out accusations of racism, and then when asked about specifics, only giving vague explanations. This reporter left these people speechless when she asked them to elaborate, but they weren't speechless a minute ago.
As generations go on, we become more accepting to things. And I think that even if you don't like somebody, it's not a good idea to normalize dead naming.
Yeah, so can you explain to our audience what is dead naming? You probably know it better than I do.
Is when somebody transitions and they choose a new name conforming to their gender. So if their name was Lisa before and they changed it to Jack, if you called them Lisa before that, or Lisa after they transitioned, that is dead naming.
What's wrong with that?
I think it's very wrong because I have a lot of trans friends, and if they were dead named, it would be, shattering to them because it's something that is so personal to them. What?
Shattering?
Yes. It's who they are now. People don't transition just for the hell of it, It's a very personal thing to them. They don't do it to appeal to the other gender or whatnot.
Yeah, but let's think about it. Isn't it part of their biography? Can you really erase history and act as if that it wasn't your name for a while? For example, it was another name than Rachel Levine.
It's not right to do it on children.
No, that's fair. I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
I really mean that, and you should be encouraged. I wish more people were sane enough to say that.
Mhm.
But let me kind of complete the point. A biography should not be eliminated because someone demands respect. For example, I can say that Muhammad Ali used to be called Cassius Clay. It's part of his life. And then he found Islam, and he decided to be called something else. And all of a sudden, you get this rancor and this uproar that somehow I'm being hateful and no longer worthy of a Twitter platform because I said a fact. That Levine had a name and a family and was a man and then claims he's a woman. If all of a sudden history and facts can be erased, we are dangerously approaching a 1984 dystopian world control scenario that I don't think any of us should entertain. Final thoughts?
Okay, to wrap it up, my point was basically just I think it's better to normalize not normalize, but not put out that it's okay to do these types of things. I think it's just general human respect. I think we just all need to become more accepting, and we don't really need to,
Got it. And so my opinion is 180. We have clarity, not agreement. I'm not going to accept mental delusions with force.
This student brought up how Charlie Kirk dead-named someone and then even gave him the out of saying maybe it was a mistake. But Charlie Kirk doubled down and let her know it was not a mistake. He intentionally called that person by their original name and not the name they picked out for themselves. And then he tried to ask what was wrong with that, but didn't agree with the extent to which this student made it seem like it was shattering to the trans person. Charlie Kirk's position, that's their biography, that's how they were born. So he wants to keep calling them by that name no matter if they change it or not.
I don't mean to pick on Francesca too much here, but it's very telling that even the liberals who are going on television to defend this ruling have to Google in the breaks to figure out what the crime was. and even then, I'm sorry to say, misrepresent what the actual supposed crime was. The reason here that this has to take... Well, excuse me one second, Francesca. I'll just finish my point real quickly.
Books. That's the same thing.
Yeah. It's not a felony, not a crime, but anyway, that's a point for another time. The reason why even the great defenders of this conviction can't... yes, to you as well. The reason that they can't articulate this is because it's not really a crime. That's why they had to upend 234 years of precedent for this. And it gets back to a point that you made earlier, Piers, and that you made, Kevin, which is that Alvin Bragg really overplayed his hand. Sure, he overplayed his hand to some degree, but what else were they going to do? Donald Trump was always going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. A lot of people feel that he was gypped in 2020. He's the biggest guy in the party. It was going to happen. And Trump poses a real threat to the liberal establishment. He's not a Mitt Romney type Republican. He has different views from the so-called uniparty on things like trade, on things like immigration, and things like foreign policy and war. Trump posed a major threat. That's why they took such extraordinary measures for the last 8 years to take this guy out. They weren't able to do it politically. They weren't even really able to do it at the ballot box. So what's left? The only thing left to do is to try to throw him in prison so that he can't campaign for the election. I agree, it's backfiring.
This is not a federal case, Michael. You know that. It's not even a federal case. Why do you think that it's not a DOJ case? It's not a Biden case. It's not a Merrick Garland thing. It's New York state law. So the idea that this is somehow politically motivated is all made up in your head, because what you
Biden's
do
DOJ is
on
also
your show
prosecuting
every
Donald
day
Trump twice.
is you groom your audience for fascism, and you set them up for a complete takeover of the DOJ. This is all about allowing Trump to get away with any crime he wants, as you sort of slighted and sort of, laid out very nonchalantly just a little bit ago. He was impeached twice. Doesn't really matter that he tried to blackmail the leader of Ukraine into digging up non-existent dirt on Joe Biden, but that doesn't matter to you
Joe
or
Biden
your
threatened
followers.
to withhold arms.
You want to make sure. You want to make sure that when
you're
Trump is
accusing me
reelected,
of fascism.
he can get away.
That's a big,
he can
Francesca,
get away
you're
with
accusing
getting
me of
rid of the
fascism. That's a
Department of
big charge.
Education.
All I would point out is that it's not my party that's imprisoning its political opponents right now. So if we're going to throw that accusation about it.
I was about to say one of the key.
This guy slammed the lefty for spending the commercial breaks Googling what the crime was that she's so against. Seems she should have known what it was before she decided she was against it.
Couldn't people argue that you're doing the same by claiming that people are trying to destroy the family and trying to destroy and mutilate people's genitals and stuff like that? Like, plenty of people could make the same argument that you are doing the same thing that you're claiming the left is doing.
Well, is it or is it not true that children's genitals are being mutilated in the name of the transgender ideology?
Do you have proof of that?
Yes, I do. Have you Googled it?
Oh, I've Googled plenty, yes.
Well, see, that's the difference. When you say when you say that someone is fear-mongering, there's a difference between warning people about the reality of what's happening versus pretending that someone's words, literal words, like words can't actually hurt you. You're not hurt by my words right here. You're standing right there. You're perfectly safe. I'm standing right here using my words. Maybe we don't see eye to eye on this topic. I don't know what your politics are. But the fact of the matter is, it's reality. When you look at what's happening at gender clinics all across the country, Jazz Jennings, everyone's heard of Jazz Jennings, right? One of the most prominent transgender young people in our country. This individual, is a male and had his genitals, he was castrated. Is that not physical bodily harm, irrevocable bodily harm to this person?
I mean, I don't know specifically about that person, but I think, I do think the claim that children are having their genitals mutilated across the country isn't true. So.
Well, I encourage you to look it up because I think you might change your mind about the whole issue when you see the reality of the situation. It's horrendous, and it's not something that should be left and right, Democrat or Republican. When you see what is actually begot of this ideology, it truly is horrendous. Young boys are having their cut off. They're being castrated. What happens is they take the skin, I'm sorry this is graphic, but this is the reality of the situation. They take the skin and they invert it. They create a false hole in the groin, in the crotch of the young boy, and create what they call a does that sound like something that you want to be happening to children in our country? I don't think so. It's horrendous. And I mean, there was in one of the pivotal studies that underpins the gender affirming model of care that kind of led to this transitional surgery. One of the 18-year-old young people who was undergoing the surgery actually died from it because it's dangerous. Again, I highly recommend that you look it up because I think that we'd find common ground on that point and that you would not approve of young people's bodies being mutilated the way that they are when you see
She lets her know fear-mongering is one thing, but when there are facts, when there is truth, it isn't fear-mongering, it is warning. This woman isn't trying to scare people, she is trying to warn them. There are men choosing to have their genitals castrated. How is that not physical harm?
Good evening. My name is Liam Morrison. I live I'm in the 7th, 10th grade at Nichols Middle School. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I never thought that the shirt I wore to school on March 21st would lead me to speak with you today. On that Tuesday morning, I was taken out of gym class to sit down with two adults for what turned out to be a very uncomfortable talk. I was told that people were complaining about the words on my shirt, that my shirt was making some students feel unsafe. Yes, words on a shirt made people feel unsafe. They told me that I wasn't in trouble, but it sure felt like I was. I was told that I would need to remove my shirt before I could return to class. When I nicely told them that I didn't want to do that, they called my father. Thankfully, my dad supported my decisions and came to pick me up. What did my shirt say? 5 simple words. There are only 2 genders.
We had a 12-year-old boy come and confront the school board on his own, speaking about how shocked he was that a t-shirt got him pulled from class just because it said there are 2 genders. This kid is only 12 years old, and he is already ready to get into politics with polarizing opinions.
Just need a rant. Universal labor support just called me, and the first thing they did is dead name me. Love that. We're off to a really good start. They ask if I'm available for a shift. In 9 weeks, they have not scheduled me. First of all, mostly everyone who calls from labor support knows me as Max, not dead name. Getting off to a really good start right there, aren't we? Second, pretty much everyone I talk to knows about my situation. They know that I'm homeless. It's not like I have a bed I can crawl up in and take a nice nap. I don't have an accessible shower. I don't have anywhere to keep my dog. And they're trying to schedule me on Sunday. No notice. Nobody calls me and says, hey, yo, we want to schedule you now. No. They ask if I'm available to their needs after they me over for 9 weeks. Go Universal. For dead naming me. For not changing my name on my ID. For not understanding my situation. For being transphobic. I am so done with companies us over. I am so sick and tired of filling out application after application for loans to get money to get ahead. I am so done. When will these companies learn? The whole reason why I'm in this situation is because they don't pay me enough. And I'm not the only one. I hate living in my car. I hate not being able to work. I hate not having a roof over me and my partner's head. I keep trying doing everything I can to live, to have a comfortable life, but it's not enough because this country doesn't believe that minimum wage should be able to pay all your bills comfortably. And I'm done. I'm done.
This person was so upset that someone called and asked them if they wanted a shift for work and dead named them. Maybe the person calling was unaware and made a mistake. But this person went overboard with anger. They even detail how they're homeless and don't have money, but apparently aren't interested in working because they haven't worked in a while. Most people who haven't worked in a while would be thrilled to work. This person is probably not going to be taking the shift, it would appear.
You made the argument that the gender pay gap is a myth.
Yes.
And one of the main reasons that this is the case is because that female STEM education is at a lower level than it is for men. Females are continually discouraged to not go into STEM fields at a rate that's like much lower than men are. So I was wondering what you feel about this argument, and how do you think it should be remedied, or like nothing?
Well, I mean, I think that it's a free country. You can choose what profession to go into. If the idea is that the pay gap is largely due to profession choice, that's obviously true. If you look at a lot of dangerous professions, firemen, people who work on oil rigs, it tends to be men because men want to go into those professions. It's also true that men tend to spend more hours in the workplace. It's also true that women tend to take more time off with babies. That's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a rip on women. It's always bewildering to me when feminists are like, it's terrible that women take time off to be with their babies. Why? I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, completely agree. But I think there is a societal discouragement for women to go into these particular fields. I was wondering if you as a problem.
I don't see a ton of evidence that there's societal disparagement of women going into being a firefighter. What I actually see is that there's an affirmative action program in many of these cases for women going into things like firefighting, because there's now an affirmative attempt to get women
I was
into
referring
these
to
fields.
STEM fields like science, technology.
So the STEM. Okay, so James Damore has an interesting memo that got him fired from Google on this. But it is certainly true that when you look at, for example, what women major in college, the number of women who major in STEM studies, which has nothing to do with getting a job and paying, women major in humanities much more than men do. Men are just interested in this stuff more. That's not a terrible thing. I don't see why that.
Yeah, but I
should be
mean,
a
like, there's
terrible thing.
societal influence that occurs even before the college level, right? I mean,
I don't know that there are a lot of people saying to a 7th grade girl who's good at math, you need to stop that and go read some poetry.
This person thinks that the pay gap is because women aren't choosing to go into higher paying careers, but he thinks that is something that can be fixed. How could that be fixed? These people are making the choices themselves. How can the government make people make different choices?
If it can't be reversed and young minds make bad decisions, shouldn't we at least wait till they're 18 before we give them drugs?
100%.
Okay, we agree on that. Then.
Yes, I agree on that. However,
that
you're
is a
making
strong moral agreement.
You're making a little straw man here. You're assuming that the majority of these cases are young people who are being forced to transition either through surgery or hormone replacement. In the vast majority of these cases, that's not what it is. It's people either as an adult transitioning or when they're young, they're choosing to identify differently, to dress differently, to present themselves differently, not necessarily to go through a surgery or hormones. That's the minority of it. And you're
if a man who's a lunatic who thinks he's a woman wants to wear a dress in his home, that's never been the concern. You know what the concern is? Making me call him a woman by force and firing me or somebody from a job if I don't use the right pronoun. I have no problem if somebody has mental problems in their living room alone. So be it. Dress as Cinderella, dress as a wolf. Not the problem. The issue is when you storm the HR department and say, Sam used the wrong pronouns, and I think they should be disciplined for that. And now we all have to use these pronoun markers in our bio to cater to a fringe minority that's so fragile, that is so weak, that you can't possibly tolerate the idea of somebody mispronouncing you or misgendering. Like, grow up. Like, welcome to civil, mature adult society. Sometimes, how about you go be strong enough to go confront the other person and say, use my own pronouns? But no, at the root of the LGBT movement, the T stands for tyranny. And it's, you have to use my pronouns. You have to allow me to teach your children transgender. You have to allow me to allow myself into your life. It is not live and let live. At the root of trans ideology is live and let us rule. And we are currently living under the enemy occupation of the trans zealots. That if you misgender somebody, you could lose your entire career. That if you drive over a pride flag, it is a hate crime punished by the Department of Justice. But if you burn an American flag, they call it free speech. We have an entire month that is dedicated towards protecting LGBTQ pride. It's not live and let live. If it was, then they would do their own thing, we'd do our own thing. Instead, it is a grooming, proselytizing strategy of people that need to recruit because they can't reproduce.
This kid is trying to detail the vast majority of people wanting to transition their sex, but Charlie Kirk isn't having that. He wants to talk about the fringe cases where a man wants to wear a dress, and then he can get in trouble for calling that man the wrong word. This kid wanted to speak in general terms, but Charlie shut him down with his laser focus and tunnel vision.
Please shut up! My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on my father's side,
the Jews did not take arms against the Germans.
My late father was in Auschwitz concentration camp. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization, the demolition of homes that Israel daily commits against the Palestinians. So I refuse any longer to be intimidated or browbeaten by the tears. If you had any heart in you, you would be crying for the Palestinians, not for what's being done.
This man is not here for these activists and their misinformed views, and he begins detailing everyone in his family who spent time in concentration camps. He knows what racism looks like.
There's scientific research that supports people and says that if you identify as a certain gender, then that is, like, your gender. There's this paper on Scientific American that I found very interesting that said, like, you know, it has to do with, like, your brain formation in the womb, where gender identity forms, but it's different from sex. That's very different from a disorder where you say, I'm not actually my age, because...
Well, hold on. You just agreed with me. You said it's a brain formation issue. It's a brain formation...
I didn't say it was a disorder.
Well, so you don't think transgenderism's a disorder?
No.
What is gender dysphoria?
Gender dysphoria is when you're very uncomfortable with your own body, and that usually relates to gender, and that can usually be treated if you choose to transition to...
Right, so it's a mental condition, right?
That's, well, gender dysphoria is, but transgenderism is not.
What's the difference?
The difference between gender dysphoria and transgenderism? Yes. Being transgender means that you don't identify with the gender you're born with. Gender dysphoria means you're uncomfortable with your body. So they're two different things.
No, so you cannot be quote-unquote transgender without suffering from gender dysphoria. So let me ask you one more question. So you believe that we can dictate pronouns. Can I choose my adjectives? Can I decide to be like super rich? Or like, can I decide to be small? Like, is there anything objective that we have to actually admit? Or can you just change anything at any time?
I think people should have the right to determine their pronouns. And I don't think...
No, how about adjectives?
I don't think people actually do that, so I don't know why that's something you're...
Well, of course, like if someone says, I declare I'm rich, it's no longer than saying I'm declare I'm a man. Your chromosomes aren't that way. You don't get to choose what your reality is, do you?
Gender identity is reality.
Okay, so anyone could be anything. Let me ask, how about species reality? Can I change my species?
No.
Why?
Not.
There's people that identify as cats and dogs all the time. It's a serious mental condition. It is. It's treated all the time. Tens of thousands of cases every single year. So basically, if you believe in absolute truth, which you say you do, why wouldn't you believe in absolute truth when it comes to chromosomal structure?
Because gender and chromosomal sex are two different things.
That's right, according to your opinion. Got it. So, but now you want to impose that opinion on the rest of society, right? You can have whatever opinion you want. Here's our position. That opinion should now not apply to all of a sudden saying that men and women's sports should be conflated. Final question. Did you find a moral problem with the University of Pennsylvania swimmer changing from a man to a woman and winning the NCAA championship, defeating other women?
Well, I'm not familiar, but I'm pretty sure that the NCAA has some rules that makes it so people who transition have, like, you know, kind of a competitive, fair thing. So I haven't done much research into those rules, but
yeah, okay. So
usually they make
let me catch you up to speed. 462nd best male swimmer, best female swimmer, NCAA champion. Do you see a problem with that?
Are you suggesting that she transitioned to a woman to get better at swimming?
Of course. And we shouldn't allow that to happen.
Why would you transition yourself just to become better at a sport? Who does that?
Because you're a narcissist. That's why. Because it's like saying, why would anyone steal anything? Why would anyone cut in line? People do bad things. It's not up to us as society to accommodate the rules for your impulses to go do bad things. Last question. Do you think there's differences between men and women?
Was this the actual last question?
Yeah, last. I'm curious. No, I'm curious because I can't believe you're paying for this. It's like so interesting.
Well, there are actual differences between men and women, yes, in terms of, you know, chromosomes, as you mentioned. So, yeah, sure.
Okay, so therefore we agree that men and women have differences. We should define society around those differences. And one of those differences is that women they have lower testosterone levels, and they could be easily exploited by men, which is what happens far too often, and it's incumbent on men who have higher testosterone levels, who are physically stronger to protect women against the exploitation of men who think they are women. That's a moral question and a moral claim. Thank you for being...
This lefty is saying that your gender isn't based on your sex, it's based on what you think you are. But then he walked right into one of Charlie Kirk's talking points, saying that people who identify differently from how they're born do that because of something different in their brain, to which Kirk pounces and lets him know that means they have a condition of the brain, a mental condition.
I'm an 8-year military veteran. I'm a college student. I'm a black woman, and I believe that white privilege exists.
You served in the military. You've made good choices. You're getting rewarded for them. You're going to live in the American middle class. What privilege do I have that you don't have that is based on skin color, not on wealth or socioeconomic status? Name one thing that you can't do that I can do.
I don't know. I can't make a whole dollar.
What? You can't? Why?
Oh my God. There's so many different ways they sell you oppression, and she has purchased all of that today. So right now we are on, right? So she's saying that I can't make a full dollar. Yes, you can.
What frustrates me is you've served our country, which deserves to be applauded. And you have lived a life of a victor, and you have the gumption to tell me you're a victim without evidence. You were not able to cite one thing that you cannot do that I can do.
So you're actually the reason why people like us can't do well, because they've sold you our oppression and you bought it. Blacks were doing better under the Jim Crow era.
If you acknowledge the oppression of other people, we can heal from it.
No, we
but
can't.
if you want
No,
to
we
ignore
can't.
it, we won't have anything happen.
That's not how this works. Dialogue and acknowledging things doesn't make us suddenly rich.
They shut down that military veteran. She let them know even after serving in the military, she is at a disadvantage in life because she is black and she is a woman. She wants the oppression of her people to not be ignored, but they told her dialogue doesn't help. It doesn't make you suddenly rich, so it's pointless.
Hi, I'm wondering, there are dozens of words for two-spirited people, people that would now be considered LGBTQ or trans people in the native languages. So I'd like to know how, as these people have existed for thousands of years before you were alive or anyone else in this room was alive, and before anyone even colonized America, if trans people were around then, I'm just wondering why you think it is that trans people are only here now because the media is telling people these things.
Well, do you think it's weird that I graduated with 0 trans people? Do you think what do you think has contributed to the explosion of transgender people from the time that I was in high school? I'll ask you a question back. If this was just a natural thing, and I don't know what you're talking about with two-spirit people, is this like a Native American tribe, like high, smoking, and talking about your spirit? I'm asking you seriously, because when I think of Native American tribes talking about their spirits, I know that they used to smoke a lot, they used to do drugs, they also were cannibals who used to eat people, so I don't know if we should be taking our cues from cannibals. But
I think
can you
that's
explain
kind
to me
of
what two-spirit
ridiculous.
is in the history?
There are people that would now be considered trans people, people that did not feel that they fit
What
the
part,
binary
though?
gender.
Native Americans? I'm asking you.
Yes, I'm telling you that not only in one Native American tribe, but in multiple tribes, there were dozens of terms that referred to people that would now be considered trans, and that was hundreds of years ago. So I'm just wondering why you think that people are only trans now because the media is telling them to be.
Well, I told you, because of the proliferation. So you can't just go from having 0% to suddenly 25%
But what
of
I'm
people.
saying is that these people were around for thousands of years.
Well, what you're saying is that some Native American tribes had people that would be considered trans today,
People that
something that we can't
were
fact
trans.
check because they're dead, right?
Historical knowledge.
It's historical
documented.
knowledge that there were trans Native Americans.
Yes.
I really don't think that's historical knowledge. But here's what I'll answer. I don't think that there were trans Native Americans.
So if you could educate yourself a little more, you would know that.
Okay. I will educate myself.
This lefty wants to bring up how she thinks that Native Americans used to be two-spirited, which people have decided to deduce meant that they were trans. But the question back is, if this has been going on for that long, then why has there only been an explosion of people deciding to be trans as of lately? No matter how many times this girl says it's been going on for a lot longer, she just keeps getting shut down.
I just have a simple yes or no question. If the only way to ban abortion forever would be to bring back slavery, would you do it?
No.
No?
No. I wouldn't bring back slavery to try to limit murder. No.
Okay.
But what kind of outrageous question is that? To limit human suffering is to ban abortion. Would you ban abortion?
No.
It was an honest answer. Okay. It was an honest answer.
This girl just gave an incredulous situation which would never happen. So what's the point of even asking? A question like that proves nothing, and then it got turned around on her to prove the question was ridiculous. And that's just what happens when woke people get too crazy and forget they're being filmed. They get owned on camera because they forgot to back up their opinions with things that make sense.